guys, welcome to WorkTable Wednesday. Sorry for all the commotion. I'm trying to get everything up and running and get it where you can see what I'm working on. That's always a challenge on this table, which I don't know if you saw my post earlier this week where I said, oh my gosh, I have this enormous table that I work on, but instead I choose to work on about an 8 by 8 inch square area. So let me turn the volume down on my iPad. All right. So tonight, let's get started. We are going to make a little card tonight with one of the new sets of stamps that came out in the new annual catalog. And tonight we are playing with Hippo Happiness. This is a really, really cute set that has come out. And in fact, you'll notice down here, this little icon shows that this was designed by one of our fellow consultant demonstrators, and when they make the benchmark of selling $1 million and having $1 million in sales, they then get to inspire and work with the designers in Riverton, Utah to create their own set of stamps. This was put together by one of the designers by one of the consult demonstrators in Utah. And she loves puns, and so you see it's called Hippo Happiness, and so there's hip hippo, hooray, and you've got some hippos down here, and then you've got when in doubt be a unicorn, so you've got the unicorn parts down here. You are special, thank you so much, and of course you have the sheep, and then you have the butterflies here, so it's fluttering by to say hi. So it's a cute set, and what's even better about this set is it's available in a bundle with the coordinating dies that are called Hippo dies. Imagine that. Hippo Happiness, Hippo dies. And in this set of dies, you see there is the outline of the sheep, the outline of the unicorn, and the outline of the hippo, and the butterfly. And then you also get this awesome set of 10 frames. So you have this elongated oval with a square highlights. You have this nice sort of flourished circle-ish square type thing, and then these shapes here, which would be an octagon with the 8 sides, having to go back a little bit there. And then what you can do with that is so you can either make mats out of these items, or the cool thing about this is with these right here, you see these little things right here allow you to put that up on the tag and make this a tag. Any of these become a single hold or a double hold tag. And I say a double hold tag, and they actually have it spaced so you can space it off the end. So you can make a tag that you can feed the ribbon through the back. So you'll have 2 slits here, or you have 2 slits here. This is the corn, obviously, the horn for the unicorn. And then you have the butterfly, the balloons, and a couple of flowers. And then here's some more. Here's another set of the holes for the tags. So this is a great set. It's not just for the hippos. It's some really good architectural pieces. What I call these to be architectural pieces, because you can do any number of things with these shapes. You can stamp any number of sentiments on them, images, and use them for any number of stamp sets. So if you're interested in it, this is the Hippo Happiness and the Hippo Dies. It's a bundle. And if you're familiar with the bundles, they are 10% off of the total price. So if and this is not the situation right now, but let me look it up real quickly. If the stamps and the dies together are $50, $50 minus 10% is $5. So that makes the bundle $45. This particular set, bundle, I should say, is, let me just look it up in the index. If you haven't had a chance to look in the new annual catalog, this is one of the things that Stampin' Up! Does so well. They have everything organized in the back. So Hippo Happiness is on page 49. And let's look at that. So yes, here it is in the catalog. And you can see some ideas, some things that they made. I'm going really simple on this project tonight. But you can see here's the sheep used with a couple of those little square framelets or squares that we showed a minute ago. And then here's the bundle. So normally this would be 18 and I'm not sure, I'm not doing the math right now, so probably $58, $5.80, something close to that. So it's 10% off, and it's $48.50 for the dies and the stamps. And so here's the picture of the dies, and it's a great way to look at it. So if you haven't had a chance to look at the catalog and you want one, let me know. I can get you one either in the mail, or if you're local, I can work out a delivery of some sort to you. Would love to do that. If you don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I would love to be able to help you out on that. So I started the card prior to the live. I was going to make a sample so that I would have something to work with. And I actually got caught on the phone, and so I didn't get everything finished. But here's what we're starting with. And so let me show you what I've done and some tricks that I've learned and some mistakes that I don't want you to make. First of all, I love to use an embossing folder on the front of my cards because it adds such nice texture to the card. And tonight we're going to use one of the two embossing folders that's in the annual catalog called Greenery Embossing Folder. This one, you can see it's a series of ovals, and then of course this one is greenery that goes from either side, which is nice that you can do the two corners of a mat or something like that. What you're also going to notice that are different, these are the new mini embossing folders from Stampin' Up! They're not as wide as the old embossing folders. Now, we still have the wider ones that we use in when we're trying to do a larger piece of paper, but these are at about 3¼ inches wide, maybe 3½, and will fit perfectly in our new mini stamp and emboss machine, which will be coming out later this year. Current demonstrators can order the new stamp and emboss machine, which if you haven't seen it, it is going to be awesome. It takes up a little bit less space on the table than our previous machines. And so we have one that is the standard width that we've grown accustomed to. And then we have the mini, which I can already see is going to probably land a space on my desk, not very far from where these ink pads are, because these are going to be great. So this year in the annual catalog, Stampin' Up! Has introduced a number of these narrow or mini folders, and I tell you, these are going to be great. But let me tell you what I learned. So I used the rectangle stitched shapes, which is a set of dies that we carried over that has 13 different rectangles in it. You can see some are of the same perspective or proportions as the front of a card. Some are more narrow, some are smaller. They don't completely nest, but they are also, like I said, it's very, very valuable. And the cool thing about this die set, let me show you, is that you see that this solid line right here is the cutting line. And this is where, let me get where you can see a little bit better, because I'm looking at this on my iPad. Let me see. There we go. So that's the cutting line. The solid line is the cutting line, and that's what cuts the shape out. But on the stitched shapes that we have from Stampin' Up!, a lot of them will put in a double line of stitching. So not only does the piece you're cutting out, if you want this piece, will have stitching on the edge and then the cut edge, but also the negative space will have the stitching as well. The same thing happens for the hippo dies that we use to make this little highlight here for the sentiment. It does the same thing. You can see the stitching is left on the negative space, which is kind of cool. All right, so I started out this card with making taking a piece of Pacific Point cardstock and had it at 5½ by 4¼ which is your standard card front. And then I thought, oh, I want to emboss some white with that folder and put that on there, but I want it all to have the stitched shape, the stitched edge. Okay, well, I'll just emboss this piece, and then I'll attach it, and then I'll run it through and trim the edges. Well, let me tell you, that wasn't a good idea for a number of reasons. If you can see the embossing, it was all crushed back down into the paper. And so here's what the embossing should look like when it comes out of that folder. You see how crisp those edges are. They aren't very crisp here because they've been crushed. Their life, the soul has been crushed out of this embossing. So we learned that that's not a good way to do it. So that's a word to the wise. So instead of trying to finish up the sample card I was making on the front end, let's just go ahead and finish up using the card parts that I have ready for the demonstration. So, as I've mentioned, I have this piece of Pacific Point blue that I have cut with the largest of the rectangle dies. So I have that piece. And then you can see I do have this piece of white that's been embossed. But what I did was, before embossing it, I actually took a small piece of this Whisper White and lined it up so that I knew I had a straight edge going through the embossing, through the folder, and lined it up and put the stitched edges around it. So I have the stitched edges now, like I wanted. So all I have to do at this point is line this up on top of my mat. Grab my adhesive. So I will line this up. And if you're really, really OCD, like some people I know who shall remain nameless, you can try to line this up, and it just so happens it can go in one of two corners. And you can see there's a little bit of difference in the stitching on the corners. So let's line that up and put that one in there and put this one in here. And stick them together, and well, it's not exactly straight. Let's see. I think we talked about this last week, that the beauty of liquid glue is that you can reposition some. But with our dry adhesive, a lot of times there's some forgiveness, especially if it hasn't been sealed, pushed down. So there you go, there's the card front, the base. Now we're going to make our hippopotamus, which I cannot wait, because I can see making some Christmas cards with the hippopotamus. I want a hippopotamus for Christmas. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to get off on that. So this is, like I mentioned in the blog a couple of weeks ago, this is what's called a two-part stamp set. Let me stamp this. So you'll have the body of the hippopotamus, and then we'll also come back and stamp the highlights. Now, something like this, if I were making a lot of them, I would most likely line this up in my Stamparatus, because that's a lot of lining up. But I'm just making one tonight, so I'm going to actually eyeball it. But something else I want to show you, because this stamp pad is new and it's juicy, and again, it's Magenta Madness, one of the new in colors. It's very juicy, and so that is a very nice, solid image that comes out. And so you won't be able to see a lot of difference between these two images. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this as a piece of scrap, and we're going to ink up our hippopotamus. And you'll notice I'm using a stamping mat because this is a photopolymer stamp, and there's no cushion between the photopolymer and the acrylic block. So we'll tap, 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 stamp off once. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, which tells me that I'll have a splotchy image. So let me do this, since I've stamped it off on a hard surface. So tap, tap, tap. We stamp it off on the white. Look at that beautiful hippopotamus. And I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to stamp it on my little medallion. 3, 4, and then pop it off. Well, I don't really like the way that looks. And you know what? As I tell my customers and my classmates, students in my classes, paper has two sides. There's a reason paper has two sides. But for this particular situation, I'm getting a different one, different medallion, because of the way the stitching is cut in there. Let's try that again. You know what? Sometimes it doesn't work perfectly the first time. That's okay. So stamped off. I'm going to huff on it, get it moist again. Stamp again. And that's a little bit better. Okay. Now we're going to come back with the second piece. Now I'm not going to stamp off on it, and this is going to be a first generation stamp. That other was a second generation stamp. This is what's called a second generation stamp because I stamped here first, and then this is a second generation. So now I've inked up the body, or the highlights. Now I'm going to have to line this up, so forgive me if I get a little bit out of camera range. On this one, I'm going to line up the hooves and roll it up towards the top because I think that's going to be the easiest way to line that up. And again, ooh, we're going to turn it over and we're going to do one more. Sorry, my samples worked out much better than this. But also, you know, it's okay to see that it doesn't always work perfectly every time. So there's that again. I think I was overthinking it a minute ago. And here's the cute thing. There's a little face that goes on it. So we're going to take that and we're going to line that up, the little cheeks and the highlights and the smile and the eyes. And look at that. Is that not the cutest? That hippopotamus. My Magenta Madness ink, because it's like many other things that if it's of the red family and I have it on my stamp table, it will eventually look like a crime scene. So let's set this aside for a minute, and we're going to come back and we're going to stamp the hippo, hip hip hooray. And in this one, I'm going to stamp it on a piece of Whisper White. And actually, I really like this font too. This is a nice clean font that's good, especially for kids. It's great. And then, of course, Pacific Point is a great color. So look how nice and clean that is. So let me grab the mini trimmer. Now, sometimes you might be working on something and you think, well, gosh, that's great, but how am I going to line that up? So it's going to be a little difficult to line up, but you know, it's not too hard. This particular situation, I've got enough room over here that I can use that to line up on this side. And I'll trim it like that. Now, if I just had this piece and I was trying to trim it again, let me show you a trick. Put a piece of a Post-it note on your image that you're trying to trim, and you can slide that under the protective bar, but you can also use that to adjust it back and forth when you're trying to do it, especially because you don't want to get your fingers up underneath there. But that's just a little trick to teach tonight. So now we're going to come back and we're just going to trim the end off of this, notch that off. So now let's assemble our card. I have my card base here. I have a piece of thick Whisper White. So then I'm going to build my card. So I'll put this on here and then line it up like so. Now I will take dimensionals, which are the bomb. If you worked at all with this, you know that dimensionals are little foam adhesives that give a little bit of height to your sentiment or to your piece that you're putting on your card. And then we're going to figure out where we're going to put him. And then let's get this notched up in here. So I'm going to slip this little buddy right up in here. I don't have him adhered yet. So let me go ahead and adhere him. Almost got the cart before the horse. So then you put that like that. Now there are a couple of things we can do. We can either add some ribbon that matches the Magenta Madness, but in this situation I think I'm going to use some of my favorite, the basic rhinestones, which are simply clear rhinestones that don't have any color on them, but you can add those in like that. I often will use my pick a tool, and I like to use multiple sizes of rhinestones, and you know, always put them in groups of 3 or 5 because, well, for a number of reasons, but my favorite reason is because my grandmother always did flower arranging, and she always put everything in groups of 5, or odd numbers, I should say, not 5. So this is really cute, and what I might have done before is put in a little bow on the hippopotamus's head. But this is a real basic card. You can flip it open. We'll grab the sentiments from the set and say Hippo Birthday on the inside. Let me grab that. We will take that off. And something else, let me show you a little trick while I'm doing this. If you have a sentiment that has some adjusting to do, or that you want it to be in a good line, but you aren't sure if you picked it up correctly or if you put it away straight, take it and just drop it onto your work surface, because then the photopolymer will adjust and go back to what is normal or straight. Then you adhere the stamp block to it that way. Now, the other thing you always want to make sure is when you do your card, make sure you have the sentiment going the right direction, because nothing's worse than doing the card and putting the sentiment upside down. Now, there's some people that I can send a card like that. There's some people I wouldn't dare send a card like that. Some people would expect it almost. So here we go. We're going to put that in the center. Hippo Birthday. And there you have it. A super, super simple little card for a birthday. This would be great for a kid's birthday or a friend's birthday. And if you wanted to get really fun, here's something else you might think about doing. You could always, now, I'm going to use the Simply Chamois. This allows us to wipe the ink off. Now, all of our reds have a tendency to stain our photopolymers. That's okay. That just means it's a well-loved stamp. And you know what? The best stamps are well-loved stamps. The saddest and the loneliest stamps are the ones that are never taken out of their cases. And Little Life of Solitude. Yes, I'm getting a little long-winded. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little surprise on the inside, which I always love little surprises for my card recipients. Now, remember, we're still using a photopolymer stamp, so we're going to come back with a stamp mat. But I'm going to actually stamp onto the edge. So here's what you can do if you want to. I'm going to show you what we're going to do. Put this down so that you don't get ink on your stamp mat. So we're going to open up the Pacific Point again. We are going to stamp, stamp, stamp. Tap, tap, tap. Stamp off once. Look at that. I'm wondering if I've picked up some lint somewhere. Try this one more time. Okay. So we're just going to put a little hippo right here. And of course this one's going to be blue because we don't want to show preference one way or the other. And you can see, I'm going to show you again, I'm just lining up the hooves and rolling it forward. Didn't exactly line up like it was perfectly, but you know what? It's okay like this. So we'll come back in with the cute little face. Stamp that. Now, normally I would have suggested that you stamp all of your insides before you put everything together, but gosh, sometimes I like to live on the edge. So there you have the Hippo Birthday, right like that, with the rhinestone embellishments. You flip it open, and then you have Hippo Birthday. Now, if you were more careful, I was doing this kind of quickly, so This is a great card. This is a great set to start with. This, like I said, the bundle price is $48.50. You know, for $48.50, you can get the bundle with the die. If you don't have the stamp and emboss machine, you know, you can always freehand cut these things. But just think about all the cute cards you could make for kids, for friends, thank you cards, birthday cards, cards for encouragement. You know, if somebody's having a hard time, tell them. When in doubt, be a unicorn. I mean, those are great sentiments, and I can't wait to use this. And I've already got some ideas about maybe trying to do a rainbow unicorn. So stick with me. I may try to do that with some using the Stampin' Right markers to do the blends. Stampin' Right markers on the body of the unicorn. No promises. That'll be something I come up with later. So I hope you've enjoyed this tonight. Like I said, it's WorkTable Wednesday. This is what's on my work table. It's that time of year. We're going to start thinking about going back to school or going to school or homeschooling or whatever happens to be the choice that you make. And whatever choice you make is, you know, good for you. But let's spend some time and think about who we can make some cards for and be ready for it. I'm going to start working on scheduling some Christmas card classes coming up, starting at the end of August. If you haven't heard about it yet, I do have a class that just came out for Hooray to You, which is using a birthday set, and I don't have it up close by. But I'm looking forward to having that class. It's going to be my first online class. It'll be set up as a Facebook Live. You'll pre-order your materials in advance, and everything you need, everything you need to make the card will be in the kit. And then we will stamp along for 4 or 5 cards, and then you'll have the directions for make other cards. So, I'm signing off for the week. This is Virginia Porta. This has been the WorkTable Wednesday Live. And if you don't currently have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the United States, I would love to be able to help you out. Love to be able to get you a catalog. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help you. You can always email me at virginia@dreamincolor72207.com, or simply comment on this video on Dream in Color on Facebook. Thanks, and have a great week, and talk to you guys next Wednesday. All right, bye-bye.